going to be leaving that Pokemon in the active spot. And usually the strategy with a deck like this is you try to use a card like Marnie, disrupt their hand, leave them with nothing to do, and hopefully they don't find a Snorlax. It's going to be tough for Austin as it's not going to have that reach. It's just the one Roxanne for shuffle, and that means that Daniel already took a bunch of prize cards, and U2V Union doesn't do that unless they're already winning.
Yeah, I mean, U2V Union, it takes a little bit to be able to get it set up, but having a lot of different options in this list to try and make sure that things can get pitched as fast as possible to make sure that you can get this set up as well, the drawing power that the Snorlax does have to make sure that you can keep putting cards in to get this U2V Union set up, because once it's set up, I mean, it has the potential to heal, it has the potential to deal big damage. It's just an insane Pokemon.
Well, we'll see if any of the pieces are in the prize cards here. Looks like Daniel dodging that. And Austin with 3 energies in the prize cards could be a little bit unfortunate. Of course, Daniel with 2 and of the 3 psychic energies. So if this Mewtwo V never wants to attack, that could be a little awkward.
Yeah, we have the pieces of the Mewtwo V in the deck and the potential to get those into the discard, but you need to be able to follow up with the energy. So you have to make sure you're not finding yourself in a tricky position, as the list only does play the 3 of those.
Well, excited to see what these players have in store for us. We're going to go ahead, jump into the action now, as it looks like Daniel is going to be starting things off here.
On his end, and it will be that Snorlax, the Miltank in the lead here, and being able to get an Ultra Ball to start. We can see one piece of this Mewtwo V Union ditched right away. The sooner you can get those pieces into the discard, the better.
Well, we do see the Drapion V start here. That can be a Pokemon that knocks out Mewtwo's, I suppose. It's definitely can take advantage of that dark weakness, but starting it in the active spot and looking at a Miltank is not the best.
Yeah, anything, or almost anything else to start would have been nice here on Austin's and a comfy something other than the Drapion, because you don't want to necessarily be putting that down until you're ready to try and go swinging with it. The Ultra Ball will just be a Snorlax from Daniel's end. Such a strong Pokemon with the fact that its ability, you'll be able to get more cards, even if it does end your turn.
Yeah, Gormandize is a fantastic way, especially when you open and get to go first. It basically feels like you're using an attack. And it looks like we're going to have to take a bit of a break here as Daniel removes the headset. So we'll
go back to the podcast.
There we go.
To talk a little bit more about the Pokemon cards. Just a quick little deviation podcast over. We can talk about, go back into this. But no, that's Snorlax. Being able to get that going and just have this on the bench, be able to get what you need. Oh, it is the sleeve. That's what it is. Make sure we're all set.
We've seen sleeves be an issue lately for some players, and go ahead and just remove that when you see it. I like Daniel understanding that and not going to run into any issues today.
No, that's the last thing you want at this point, too. Make sure all your cards are up to code. And now the shuffle, make sure you're all good. That Snorlax will go onto the bench, and just a twin energy attached to the active to make sure it has the cost to be able to retreat and throw that Snorlax right up active. And that's going to make sure that you can take use of this ability. Yeah,
just get your hand up to 7. You can feel comfortable knowing that you get to start to go through the deck, and if you start seeing some of these Mewtwo V Union pieces, you start to feel a little more comfortable with each passing turn. But you understand that the window is closing when you see that Austin starts off with that Battle VIP pass. And I believe we saw 2 in the hand to start things off.
Yeah, not the only person who's going to be able to go through his deck. The Battle VIP pass on the first turn is such a powerhouse, being able to grab 2 basic Pokemon from deck. And the first Battle VIP pass, if there is in fact that second, the first one is going to be getting the Comfy and the Radiant Greninja. Of course, both of them are such strong cards, and the second one will be played. The Pokemon searching is not going to end there.
Yep, it looks like the Cramorant and maybe the Giratina V are the 2 cards that are being eyed up. Ooh, actually going for a second Comfy now, and I do like this. Just focus on getting these cards into the Lost Zone, and then you can make use of a Pokemon like Cramorant against Miltank and maybe start taking early knockouts.
Yeah, it only takes 4 in the Lost Zone to be able to swing with a Cramorant, and definitely can be advantage then in this situation when you are going second to just be able to try and get this damage done.
We'll see what else is on the table, and yeah, it looks like that escape rope is certainly going to be the play there. If this can be the Pokemon that remains in the active, certainly you have to think that Austin will be able to find a knockout. Looking for a little help from the deck with the Colress's Experiment, and not seeing the switching effects. And the choices start to get more difficult here.
Yeah, there's a couple energy in there. So one's going to go to the Lost Zone, another into hand. Make sure that you do have the energy necessary later on to be able to use things like this concealed cards from the Greninja to try and another chance to get some sort of switch potential. There is still the Flower Selecting. Have another crack at it, but a little bit of debate. It'll be the Rocks and pitch to the Lost Zone to make sure Giratina can go to hand.
Yeah, it's get a little bit awkward here. We do see that scoop up net, and would love to see more switching effects potentially off the top now. And that is going to be Giratina V-Star. Ooh, the switch though, very nice. It's hard to tell with all of the swag that Austin has. That's a golden switch.
Everything's gold. You know it's something good, but you just don't know good in which way, if it's an attacker, if it's a switch. And there it is, the Cramorant being brought to active with 4 in the Lost Zone now. Will be able to spit innocently to take care of this Miltank and just try, you said at the beginning, the win con, take the prizes and take them fast. And there's one to start it off.
Yeah, put the pressure on Daniel to find these pieces of the Mewtwo V Union early on. Going to use the Peonia here to maybe see if the prize cards have any hidden, and not going to get at least any of those cards. Does see the trekking shoes and I believe a quick ball, so we'll be able to thin down the hand a little bit or maybe dig a little closer to find pieces of the Mewtwo V Union. But all in all, a very slow second turn here, but that's understandable with a control list.
Yeah, sometimes the starts of the game can be really slow. It's just how you end off the games. We've gotten to see earlier on in the day with control, just even if your opponent's at just that one prize, you still have your way in as long as you can get things all set up and ready to go. The Peonia to make sure that pieces that you can try and get from those prizes are there, and make sure you take the notes that it's really important in these controls that you have everything set in order.
Yeah, Daniel going to need to leave the twin energies down at the bottom prize cards, understand where those are, maybe can make use of those for retreating later on or to continue to keep attacks rolling if the prize cards are ever to be taken. And now we're going to see it's the pressure's back on to start finding pieces here, and going to, of course, eye up some Mewtwo pieces and see if eventually they can get to the discard pile.
Yeah, being able to have that Ultra Ball to go for a piece just to be able to discard it later on. It will be that quick ball to do so. You get something useful for your bench, and you're able to get one step closer to this Mewtwo, this V Union, and just the power that these 4 cards hold.
You can see the understanding for Daniel, just going for that second Snorlax, understanding that these Pokemon aren't going to be sticking around forever. Eventually, Austin is going to be able to apply a lot of pressure. That Lost Zone is already at 4 right now, and you're going to need backup Gormandizes in order to keep a decent hand rolling and start to work your way through the deck.
Yeah, and the last thing you want in a deck that's reliant on these cards that you can get is to all of a sudden run out. It will be the trekking shoes just to make a little bit more progress through this deck. You can either keep this or you can get rid of it and move on into the next one. It looked like it was a Pokestop too. Could be nice to get some items, but it's come at a cost.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to throw away Mewtwo pieces. It's certainly a way to do that. You can see a lot of cards by use of this Pokestop, but it also helps out your opponent, and maybe that's a situation that Daniel's not ready to open up just yet.
We're going to keep on trekking here. The Pokestop was gotten rid of, but going to keep the Pokeball off of the second one, getting rid of the Silene to just try and get another Snorlax, get everything set up.
Yeah, this feels very strong. We do see an energy is in the hand too, so could even attach that if you want, just to draw 7. It feels like the attacks aren't going to be happening anytime soon, and this is completely understandable as Daniel is going to just draw up with that Gormandize and just try to see a couple more pieces of the deck, and hopefully Austin doesn't have an answer to the 130 hit points here.
Do you still high five when you're able to draw a full 7 off of the Gormandize, like the professor's research for 7, or?
You know, I don't think it's as socially accepted, but we'll have to see if we can work that in.
I mean, still being able to get 7 for next turn is definitely nice. And now, with the turn ending at that point, over to Austin. in the lost zone at the moment, but able to grab a Chorus's Experiment, and that'll be nice to just pitch a couple more cards away.
Yeah, it's great to see there, and this is where the matchup starts to get a little weird for Austin. If you don't get to incorporate a card like that Sableye into spreading the damage around, then you're left leaving these Snorlaxes not being knocked out in one hit. Hopefully, that means that your opponent isn't going to just pick that Pokemon back up with a scoop-up net, and then you lose all of your progress.
Quick, easy decision off of the Chorus's Experiment to bring this Lost Zone count up even higher at this point. It's like 7 in there, so that's going to be the number that you need for the Mirage Gate. That's definitely one of those lucky numbers, and Mirage Gate in hand does have the option now, thanks to that, to go into deck, pull energies of 2 different types, and attach them to Pokemon.
Yep, eyeing up all of the options here. We even see the water pulled up potentially. That could be a nod to maybe the Radiant Greninja getting involved at some point. I do like seeing the split here to preserve the Grass and the Psychic for later on if the Giratina needs additional energies. You can get into a resource issue where you have to discard so many energies or throw them in the Lost Zone with the Giratina V-Star, and it's nice to have the right counts at the right time.
Yeah, that's the last thing when you have a Pokemon that needs a decent amount of energy and that you have no capability getting it back with the Lost Zone. You have to be so deliberate with where each one is put. Scoop up net to then make sure that this Giratina can come into the active and take a KO.
Yeah, of course, that Shred is fantastic for knocking out these Pokemon. It eluded me for a second as we're so used to seeing the Lost Boxes using Cramorant and just not being able to take the knockouts, but 160 damage lines up so smooth here, and it really puts the pressure on Daniel to find a way out. Peonia going to be used once more. Look at the rest of the prize cards, the top 3. Is there anything good in there?
Is it, please, I need something good. All of my Snorlaxes are being KO'd. I don't have my Mewtwo set up yet. Please help me out a little bit. And that's the thing. I mean, Austin being able to get set up, being able to apply this pressure, feels like Daniel's on a little bit of a timer because, sure, getting that Mewtwo Union set up is great, but if it's a turn or two too late, what is it really accomplishing?
Yeah, and Shred is such a dangerous attack. It means that you're not going to be able to buy time with Miltank. It's just going to work right through that ability, so you're really on that clock. And we can see a card like maybe that Yellhorn is something that could be beneficial. Just try to slow down at least one turn. We do know that Austin plays plenty of ways to switch Pokemon, but you're just looking for an out at this point.
Yeah, maybe then Austin doesn't have the switch card, doesn't want to commit the switch card, anything to try and get yourself out of this situation. Just buy yourself that one more turn and just a moment of desperation. And at this point, too, it is going to be played down, so it doesn't feel great for Daniel.
Yeah, and just got to keep playing cards at this stage, and we can see that there is a little more play here to the hand. Going to add the 3rd energy down now for the Snorlax. We could actually see 4th energy on the following turn, and maybe getting involved with the Snorlax attacking into the Giratina.
I feel like that would just feel really bad at this point. Palpad going to be played to get a couple supporters out of the discard and back into deck. Meowschair as well as the Silene. At this point, too, you're so far, it seems, from getting this Mewtwo V Union set up, and these Snorlaxes are just being taken away one by one.
Yep, Snorlax has the ability to attack with that Body Slam. You could potentially paralyze the Giratina, and we've seen how effective paralysis has been against so many decks, but of course we do know Austin has some answers to that. You could, with the easiest one being Evolve, but yeah. You do like to make use of that Shred as long as you can.
Yeah, the Shred, you just have the 3 energy and you're dealing a lot of damage. As soon as you evolve and you have to be going for a lost impact, well, you're losing that energy and it doesn't feel nearly as good. But a couple of different ways to get out of it. This isn't like those Lugia lists that you have your one out. You have this. You have the escape ropes. You got the switch. You got a couple of different things. You just have to make sure the resources are managed at this point. Air Balloon to also go for the retreat to bring a Comfy forward. You can go for that flower selecting, pull a card, switch back later.
Austin just looks so comfortable right now as the cards are just flowing for him. Knockouts left and right here by way of that Shred from the Giratina, and plenty of cards to hold on to as well. Hasn't really run into any issues thus far.
Yeah, everything's going really well, and being able to just go for the scoop up net the moment to take the Comfy out of the active. You got the perks of having the flower selecting, and now you get that Giratina back in and no confusion whatsoever. That's going to be another easy KO, another Snorlax that's going to fall way of this shred, and another prize that you've gained, one closer to be able to close out this game.
Daniel's just going to download as much information as possible here. Take a look at the Lost Zone. See if there's anything that can be manipulated at this stage of the game. Of course, when you're running a control strategy, information is so powerful, you can potentially find avenues to victory by ways of stalling, hand disruption, whatever it may be. And we do know that Drapion V, it can be a liability at times, and starting that wasn't exactly in the plans for Austin.
And huge kudos to control players out there, because you need to know your own deck inside and out, but then also your opponents to be finding that best way, your best win con into that crushing hammer and a little bit of energy disruption. Could it be is on this point, and Daniel is going to go back and look at these prizes just to get that energy count and figure out where it is. There was a Psychic Energy in the discard, so it was going to be a Crushing Hammer to get rid of the one that was on that active Giratina.
Yeah, well, you've already used one of those. Let's get rid of another and make it a little bit more difficult to find. It looks like there are 4 Psychic Energies that are featured here, along with 4 Grass, so it doesn't necessarily matter which one you target down as long as you make sure that there's less of at least one.
Yeah, make it as difficult as possible for Austin to be able to get that into hand to make sure that the shred can't be going off whatsoever. Now, Ultra Ball, that will be another V-Union piece that gets pitched to the discard. I believe 3 that are in there now. Yeah, because there is the one that is in the active slot. Getting closer and closer to getting this together.
Yeah, it's been 3 prize cards so far that Austin's been able to take, and you have to think that the Gormandize is going to continue, but as long as you have 1 prize left on the board, you've got a shot, and that's what Mewtwo V Union is all about.
Now, with so much HP, the healing capabilities, and so difficult to take down, as soon as you can get that Pokemon out onto the field, that could be the checkmate spot that you've been waiting for. And sure, you can take all the prizes you want, but if you can't take all 6 of them at this point, well, then it's not really going to matter in the end, no matter how well you were doing up before that. Another energy attached onto that bench Snorlax, though, for this time around. Not too many cards in hand for Daniel, and just has to end this off with the Gormanize.
Yeah, very cool to see Daniel holding on that V-Guard energy. That could be something impactful. If you're worried about the damage output that Austin is able to come up with the V Pokemon on the other side, potentially could be something that helps out with keeping this Mewtwo V Union on the board when it happens.
Yeah, especially since, as you pointed out earlier, Austin doesn't have a way to one-hit KO it. It will have to be through multiple hits or being able to get some damage on in other sorts of ways. So anything that can slowly negate that damage, make sure that Giratina does less, is going to be really, really helpful.
Oh my, what was that? Chorus's experiment finds 4 energies off the top.
Yes. I mean, Crushing Hammer got rid of 1. Chorus's experiment going to let you just reattach a Psychic Energy and make sure that you are good to go.
That would have been 2 supporters, and I'm very glad that Austin understands that. That was scary for a second.
You can't get the good Snorlax. You only get the one that has no energy on it. You can't have the perfect turn.
Yeah, so sorry, Austin. Well, it does open up an opportunity now for Daniel. The Snorlax is ready to attack, and we see the Mewtwo V Union piece is going into the discard pile. That should be number 4, and that means that we could see the Mewtwo V Union, the Radiant Gardevoir also being eyed up too. So a lot of damage reduction opportunities.
Yeah, being able to have that Radiant Gardevoir and just the 20 less damage that it's going to receive, that with the V-Guard energy and the healing capabilities, it's going to be so nice. And I'm just excited seeing that Ultra Ball go down. Sure enough, it will be the Radiant Gardevoir being grabbed, but with that being the 4th piece, I'm just excited to see these 4 Mewtwo pieces hit the field.
Pokemon were not designed to be this large, and sure enough, we will see that likely on this turn. Daniel has an opportunity to either use the Snorlax to attack and try to buy some time, put his opponent in a weird spot, or you just retreat and go for the Mewtwo V Union. I'm very curious to see what the line is here and how you go about this when only 2 prize cards remain for Austin, and you can see the anguish on Daniel's face as he tries to figure out what is correct here too.
I feel like this has been the theme of the whole match so far for Daniel is just, I can't get these pieces together. My Snorlax keep getting KO'd out on there, and just keep holding on to that hope that you'll be able to pull off this Mewtwo V Union combination. But with the 4 hitting the field, even if they're all bunched together, it's still a really cool sight to behold.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to see him actually align this Pokemon and give it a great showing. Mewtwo V Union taking up 40, 50, 60% of the field right now. Love to see it. The V-Guard energy is going to come down there, and this is exactly what we love to see here with a potential win-in situation for these players.
That big Mewtwo is what we want to see in this competition. Forget about the Lugias, forget about the Mirrors, forget about anything else. Front and center. It's taking up the whole Pokeball that's in the center, too. This is where everyone's eyes and attention should be drawn to. Boss's order is going to be bringing up the benched Minion V at this point, and just more energy attached. Make sure this Mewtwo, once it gets going, it's going to be set.
Yeah, and we're going to see the Union gain. Go ahead and accelerate those energies from the discard pile that Snorlax so nicely was able to add on to the field now, and that means that Mewtwo's ready to go. We do see the prize exchange too. There's 2 prize cards remaining, but it's just that Radiant Gardevoir down, so you're going to have to work your way through this Mewtwo V Union.
And that's going to be a lot of work to be held. That's 310 hit points at this point. The V-Guard energy, the Radiant Gardevoir, and with access to 4 different things onto this card, I mean, this is a tank.
Yeah, this is a very exciting opportunity because you have plenty of play. Of course, you can use Super Regeneration and heal a bunch of damage. You have the V-Guard energy down, the Radiant Gardevoir as well. So if your opponent does start to get aggressive and use the Giratina V-Star, maybe you just overwhelm them and they lose all of their energies to the Lost Zone. And we do see that energy coming down now onto the Drapion. It's going to need a little more help here as it's a 4-cost attack. But that Darkness weakness or for the Mewtwo V Union is very scary.
Yeah, as long as you can have it on the bench, though, to slowly be building up, it could be that potential out at this point. And considering, I believe, the boss's orders, boss's order has already been used, it could be that endgame position that Austin needs to put himself in to just get those last 2 prizes.
We'll see if the resources are available for Austin to close out here. Felt very confident knocking out Snorlax's left and right, but Daniel did everything in his power. We do see that escape rope. It's going to target down the Radiant Gardevoir now and try to remove at least some of the damage reduction that was likely to be found, and also needed to have that additional energy there because of the Crushing Hammer. So Austin finding just about everything now.
On top of the energy and everything else, is going to take this chance to evolve into the Giratina V-Star. It's going to do a lot more damage, though. Unlike the Shred, this Lost Impact does put 2 energy attached to that Pokemon into the Lost Zone. So the energy resources is something you have to be really careful with. But now that KO is going to bring Austin just down to his final prize. Yeah,
that's a big knockout there. 1 last prize to go, but 310 hit points staring you in the face is definitely terrifying. Daniel also not having to worry about healing this Pokemon at this certain time here. And gonna just throw down the Sydney. And this might not be the matchup for it, but it's good to see what resources your opponent's holding on to.
Yeah, you know, you thrive under the conditions of having all of the information to be able to close out a game. So any additional information that you can get to try and make sure that this Mewtwo V Union cannot be touched or just cannot be countered is going to be nice for you.
Well, we'll see what the strategy is now for Daniel. Does he want to maybe spread some damage counters and target down a Pokemon like that Drapion V that's a pretty terrifying Pokemon, or do you go directly at the Giratina V-Star?
That's going to be the question at this point. Instead, it will be the damage counters on to that Drapion. Sure, it can't be boss orders up, but that Size Explosion, being able to put 16 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. That left leg, giving Drapion the boot at this point because it's being close to KO'd.
You know, I don't know if Psysplosion's a word, but I'm gonna let Mewtwo v Union get away with it because I'm not telling that Pokemon no.
Yeah, no, with the Mewtwo v Union taking up all of this field, putting this pressure out, it can do what it wants. Thank you. We're not correcting that.
Oh, there's just no cards left in the deck now, and Austin's going to have to try to close out from this spot, or at least get some cards back into the deck in order to stick around here.
And this is the trouble going up against these decks, because you've put this pressure out. You've been taking a lot of prizes, but if you can't take that one last prize, you're not able to close out the game. Ordinary Rod, Energy Recycler, get a couple of more things from this discard back into that deck. But look at that, the Mirage Gate and the energy attached from hand to bring this Drapion forward and take down this Mewtwo V Union.
Yeah, Daniel identifying the right target there, the Drapion V, is absolutely terrifying. And Austin found a way to close out there every last card in the deck to get the job done. And phenomenal performance there to have every energy do the job and close out with that Drapion V. It's a card that is teched into this deck because it wants to start to have some play around the Mew. Ends up working against Mewtwo.
You gotta love it when this tech works out for multiple different reasons, as this was the card that I believe single-handedly saved this match, because I don't really know at what other point what Austin could have done if it was not for that Drapion.
Imagine if it was dealt some damage early on in the game. If the Miltank was able to deal a quick route and get 50 damage on there, it would have just been removed from play, and we would have seen an awkward situation where an Ordinary Rod has to find that Pokemon and get it out of the right spot. And you're asking your deck to really help you out in situations like that where you could have lost a lot of resources to get to this point. And with half the time gone now, Daniel's in a situation once more where he's going to be battling for a tie, and he's taken 2 of those so far. Can he make it 3?
Oh, we've said it before with the control decks, but we'll stress it again. That is one of the biggest things going up against these control decks, because you can do so much right, but all of a sudden, if you take that game 1 loss and time's just not on your side, that's why you're going to be able to see these ties go out, because you're not going to be able to close out a round 3.
Well, I'm excited to see what these players have for us. The matchup here is pretty back and forth, as honestly, Austin is able to take so many prize cards, but Daniel was able to put up a pretty decent Pokemon there in that Mewtwo v Union. It's just, maybe the prize cards are going to play a role here.
Well, that is the entire bottom half of the Mewtwo that is going to be in the prize cards on Daniel's. And I mean, as well as a Peonia, which would have been a way to get that out
I just
of the
noticed
prizes.
that.
Yeah, we're so focused on, there is the 2 count though, so not all is lost, but it's going to be a little harder to draw into that Peonia now. That's a rough draw.
Yeah, if there was not a second Peonia on the list, then that would have been in contention for the worst prize cards we've seen this year. Of course, LAIC, we saw the seniors playing an excruciating match where the last 2 prize cards would have benefited an Ice Cube. Let's see if Austin is going to suffer the similar fates. Nah, I think he's going to play a good game of Pokemon.
Yeah, on Austin's end, like, yeah, no, these cards are nice, but I have multiple of them. I don't have these 1 counts that are going to be so important. Going to go over to Daniel to start things off, and this time instead of the Miltank, the Snorlax to lead it off. Trekking Shoes and the Miltank just going on the bench. Looking to try and get these pieces sooner and getting 1 piece of this Mewtwo into the discard, but this will be the check to realize you put the 1 to the front, but it's going to be the heartbreaking moment you realize the other 2 ain't in there.
Just shakes his head. Are you kidding me? This is ridiculous. Well, do I have Peonia? Maybe? Okay, I've got 1. How do I find it? And that's going to be the real problem here, and that means that you need to play cards aggressively down.
Oh, Daniel.
Get these Snorlaxes to draw up with Gormandise, find the 1 Peonia, and that is, I mean, it's dangerous.
Just the exasperated, like, what do I do here? I mean, if you're Austin, you're like, all right, perfect. I didn't want that Mewtwo V Union out there anyways.
I smell fear.
I mean, if you're able to grab this Peonia, it's later on in the match. If you can get that on the 2nd or 3rd turn to be able to try and scope those pieces out, it could be really nice. But it took quite a bit to get set up in the first time around. You're not going to have an easier route going into this game too.
Oh, Gormandize is going to try to help out, maybe see a couple more pieces. See one piece of the Mewtwo V Union still sitting in the hands, and hopefully that can find the discard pile soon, but we know that it's going to be a long road ahead for Daniel to get the rest of those pieces in the discard pile.
Yeah, and especially with the fact that Austin was able to take so many prizes last time before this Mewtwo V Union was set up, and then having the Drapion on at the end. For Daniel, you want to be able to get that set up. You want to be able to have a way to take out this Drapion. You want to make sure you can set up your end game, and that's just looking further and further away at this point.
Well, solid start here for Austin. Going to go ahead and find that Colress's Experiment. We know how important that card is to getting these cards into the Lost Zone. It helps you start to use cards like that Cramorant later on if you can, of course, see that Escape Rope play onto the Miltank. But we all know that Giratina is a very nice answer to Snorlax, and the earlier we see that, the better.
Yeah, if you can get that Giratina set up and start attaching some energies onto it, of course. Being able to go for the Mirage Gates later on in the game is nice, but it will just be a ride to manually attach these energy while we're still waiting for things to get into the Lost Zone. Being able to go for the Flower Selecting later on to get another will be nice, but we have a couple more things to do first. It is the first turn, which means this Battle VIP pass, you get to the front of the line, you're feeling real good about what about to happen.
Yeah, it's nice to be important, and Austin certainly is an important person here with that 1-0 lead right now in this game. Going into game 2, feeling comfortable as we see the cards hitting the Lost Zone, Radiant Greninja hitting the board too, and that means a lot of cards could potentially be seen here as we have yet to see Flower Selecting.
Just holding on to that, and with the other Comfy on the bench, there's the potential to get that magic number 4 this time around. Gonna pitch a Comfy and just keep a Battle VIP pass and just keep this going.
This is perfect. We get to see the Cramorant and probably the Giratina V. Of course, wanted to see the Drapion to make sure it's there, but I'm not benching that thing until I need to.
That's a liability to have out. You know how important that is to take down this Mewtwo V Union. You do not want to be benching that down yet, especially with the amount of damage counters it took last time before it got to attack. Scary position to be in. So it will be the Giratina and the Cramorant that'll make its way down. And if there's a couple of swap cards in Austin's hand, has the opportunity to go for a Spit Innocently this turn, especially since the other Comfy will make its way to the active for the Flower Selecting.
Yeah, this could be done with the Escape Rope. We know how great that is to make the prize exchange nice. You don't leave damage counters on the board. But in general, the most important thing here is to just continue to get cards into the Lost Zone. Open up an opportunity for Mirage Gate to help out the Giratina V, get the Shred online as early as the second turn, and you'll feel very comfortable in this matchup still.
Capture energy attached into the active Comfy. Of course, the energy attachment in this case is good for two things. First, you have something for the retreat, but most importantly, you have the capture energy, which allows you to grab a basic Pokemon, put it on the bench, and it will be a Comfy from the deck, and then the retreat coming in to go for the third Flower Selecting this turn.
I do love to see the capture energy used as a way to retreat. You don't want to have that energy sticking around. You do know that your opponent is playing a card like Flannery and could remove that from play. You don't want to have that just sitting on a Giratina V and actually need to use that resource. Instead, just use it to retreat in these spots.
Did have to pitch a Grass Energy, though, off of that last Flower Selecting, so two of them now in that discard.
That starts to feel a little bad. And of course, we've seen these energies make their way back in if they're in the discard pile, so if Daniel does start to target those with Crushing Hammers later on, we could see them come back, but Lost Zone is very unforgiving.
Yeah, I believe it was a Grass Energy and a Drapion that was pulled off for the Flower Selecting, so, I mean, the decision's easy, per se. You have to take the Drapion, but it still just kind of feels bad.
Why you do this to me?
It's the Flower Selecting. It's you can't always have the great draws, that's for sure.
Well, Daniel has some disruption in hands, Crushing Hammers and whatnot, but there's no energies down, and yeah, those would be really cool if it was next turn and your opponent was shredding you, but instead, gonna have to throw all those away, Professor's Research to find more cards, and it's like at least another hammer to hold on to.
Professor Research, though, being used, sure, you're getting more cards, but you're still not making any progress to getting those Mewtwo V Union pieces out of the discard. Get a couple more things on your bench. You can start trying to get other things set up. We see the Radiant Gardevoir and the Snorlax come down. It'll just be a quick ball to look on through that deck.
Yeah, it feels unfortunate with every discard effect that we see here that doesn't throw away a Mewtwo V Union piece. Of course, we know that it's going to be Peonia that's going to have to help out in this situation here. And every turn we don't see that, that's another turn that Austin could potentially start getting ahead in the prize exchange.
Yeah, especially now this Chorus's experiment. 2 more to the Lost Zone. That is that number 7. To have that Mirage Gate go online to be able to accelerate these energies will be a Giratina V-Star that's thrown away in lieu of the Quick Ball to go to hand. Mirage Gate, though, now being able to grab 2 different energies and attach them, start getting this Giratina online.
Yep, sometimes you don't need the big dog. You can just use the little brother. And Shred is going to be plenty of damage here, enough to start attacking into these Snorlaxes and put a ton of pressure on Daniel.
And I mean, Daniel already, with not having really this chance to get this Mewtwo V Union out, this pressure is just going to keep adding on and adding on. Austin was able to take so many prizes before we saw that Mewtwo V Union the first time around, and it's just having such a nice board set up. I mean, you have the concealed cards to keep grabbing cards, you have this scoop up net to get this Giratina active. It seems like everything is going right at this point.
I love this from Austin. He had the air balloon, he has the scoop up net, decides to use the scoop up net as he understands that in this matchup, the air balloon on the Giratina V can be so important. There's a lot of awkward disruption that can happen. You could be confused at some points. You don't want that to happen. Are we going to see the Misfortune Sisters coming down here? That is a welcome sight as it throws away 3 items.
That's insane. So Misfortune Sisters, you get to look at the top 5 of your opponent's deck and throw away any number of item cards, and being able to find 3 of them, that's nice going up against a deck like Austin's.
I wanted that switch. This is unfair. Usually when I throw 3 cards away with a Pokestop, I get to see all the items and keep them. You just threw all of them away.
That's so nasty, getting rid of the items and then just dropping down your own Pokestop to keep your own items. I love to see that coming out. Alpad, at this point, can start to throw things back in. Grabs another one paired up with that Silene. I mean, this is this is not necessarily the path I first saw going down, but I kind of like it.
This is cool. Yeah, this is definitely a route to victory, as you could just starve your opponent of the resources to switch, and then maybe you stick the confusion from the Yellhorn at some point, force them to evolve, and then you can always just recycle that card by way of Silene, and you can see an opportunity there to close out in the game, or at least put your opponent in a spot where they're flipping to take prize cards.
Yeah, you have to make sure in the control decks that you have a couple of different options, because not everything is going to be going your way 100% of the time. So being able to capitalize off of anything that you can do, and well, if it's Crushing Hammers and Misfortune Sisters, then that's just how it's going to have to go down. But a quick KO in return from the Giratina, I mean, it's just prizes from Austin done.
We will see energy coming down onto the Snorlax, obviously. Not going to be using that anytime soon. Just want to get that card into the discard pile if you ever do get the Mewtwo V Union out. You can accelerate that Psychic Energy. You don't ever want to see that again. And Marnie is a very welcome sight here for Daniel, of course, to help out with the ridiculous hand size that Austin had here.
And off of that Marnie too, can't use it this turn, but that Peonia, that's going to be a way to finally get a look into those prize cards to maybe try and save those Mewtwo V Union from there.
Yeah, if Daniel looks at them in the typical order that you do, he may only see just one Mewtwo V Union piece. It'd be very interesting to see if he just was able to grab both of them, but I think that's really going to give Daniel an understanding of how this game's going to be played. It's going to have to be a Palpad or a Silene to bring back that Peonia and play it again to get the Mewtwo V Union pieces. And then you have to discard them. And to stay in this game, we've seen so many discard effects.
Maybe Daniel just takes the prizes in a weird order, just switch it up a little bit. I don't know. That's definitely a tough situation. It's really interesting that you can kind of predict how things are going to go down based off of where they're in the prizes, considering they're taken in a typical fashion. Not so a typical card, but really fun in these types of deck is this Pikamuku with this ability, Pitch a Pikamuku. If it's in your hand, you just reveal it, put it in the bottom of your deck. Great way to grab another card and put it into your hand.
Yeah, sometimes you just have a bunch of ways to search out Pokemon and you want to see an additional card. It's cool to be able to incorporate that into this list. And It'd be even nicer if you were throwing away Mewtwo V Union pieces, but not today.
And not today at all. Only fun allowed on Austin's end of the board. Concealed cards, pitching away the Psychic Energy to go ahead and grab 2. And then debating on this Chorus Experiment to be able to grab 3 and pitch 2 away from the 10. But I mean, that 7 with the Mirage Gate is the more important one. But a little bit of a pause here for a second.
Yep, looks like I'm going to have a conversation with the judge, I suppose. We'll see what exactly is happening between our players here, as we do have 11 minutes left in this match. Austin is up a game here and trying to close out in game number 2 to make his record 6-1-1. Daniel doing everything he can to try to fight back, but the prize cards are not helping out.
Still waiting to hear, but I believe that it might have been an accidental concealed cards for 3, which is one more than you're supposed to be able to grab in this situation. So still waiting to get word on that and see how this is going to go down. That is definitely one of the ways that this can go right for Daniel.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate for Austin, as we'll have to see if this is a reversible game state and also what the penalty would be, as certainly one should be issued when that type of error is made here.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate and it sucks, and it can definitely happen on accident. Card sleeves get picked together. You're playing fast. You're getting close to the round. It's also been a really long day, but these type of things do have to be penalized accordingly to make sure they can't be taken advantage of at any point. So we do want to make sure that everything gets resolved in the way that makes sure that things keep their integrity going on forward.
Yep. If you're worried about the time, don't worry about that. Generally, when these are issued, as long as 3 minutes has passed, there should be some time extension to help out these players and give them an opportunity to play this game to its full 50 minutes. We'll have to see what exactly is going to happen here. It is always unfortunate what happens on stream, but we do love the fact that this was caught, and now we can make sure to get the game state back to where it needs to be.
Yeah, that's the one thing about being able to confirm how things go down is we can make sure to have the best possible outcome for this. But then with 10 minutes left on the clock and the fact that the Peonia hasn't been played, the Mewtwo V Union pieces are still in the prizes. How is this going to be going down for Daniel's end? I mean, any sort of prize penalty is definitely nice, but you're still really not doing too much.
I mean, it's not like you're drawing the prize cards anymore. It's just less prize cards that you need to draw in order to win the game. So if he was able to see those cards, it'd be a lot different. Instead, you still just have to count the opportunities, and it's going to have to be Peonia finds a Mewtwo V Union piece. Palpad brings back the Peonia, or you Silene it. That's another turn. Then you use Peonia again. You have to get that Mewtwo V Union into the discard pile and then play it out. And you've got, what, 4 turns to do that, as Austin has just 4 prize cards remaining and is likely going to take one this turn.
Yeah, that's the tough spot, is you're still just so behind with the fact that this Mewtwo V Union is going to take so long to be able to get together. And when you're just having the Snorlaxes out there on the field just getting KO'd, you're in a tough spot. I mean, I liked the Misfortune Sisters. I felt like that was super cheeky, but I feel like there's so many cards still left in Austin's deck that this isn't really a viable win condition, or you still have some mileage to make up if it's going to be one.
It looks like the card that was drawn was identified, so we'll see if the players can, or if the judges at least can get that worked out for us and get the right cards in the right position. And maybe we'll see what is issued there. So we can get this game back underway, as this is a pretty pivotal spot here, as Austin is trying to close out and get the 2-0 victory. Of course, if this game is going to go to time, it would likely go to Austin, as he's won the first game, and I don't expect to see the prize cards taken for Daniel here.
Definitely not, and that's another thing with these control decks is, sure, you can be winning out these games, but if it's taking these quick prizes, you're not really going to be able to do so in a majority of these cases, and you would need to be able to take prize cards. I don't think you're going to get in a position where you're going to outstall Austin, as he has this pressure, so you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah, we'll see what has to come. I still think that Daniel's in a very rough spot. Just the prize cards not helping out in this situation. Doesn't seem like there's going to be enough time to draw all of these cards out of the prize cards with the Peonia. Having that second one prize is really unfortunate because usually you could just go back-to-back, see all 6 cards, and then start to make a game plan.
Yeah, so if you're unfortunately just not pulling them in the order where they're sitting, which is so unfortunate where they ended up falling, that you're just not in a great position. So you hate to see it with these Mewtwo v Union decks. I mean, even earlier on, we got to see that a game plan was disruption with 1 being thrown in the prizes, and now 2. That's rough.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we do have a resolution here. It was a lost vacuum. It's going to be shuffled back into the deck. A double prize penalty will be issued, so that is 2 less prize cards that Daniel needs to take in order to close out this game, and we should get back underway here.
It's still, even with the 2 prizes, it's still going to be a really difficult one to close out. And now with that resolved, Austin can keep going on forward with his turn. It was the Colorist experiment that he had intentions of going for, and it is what he's going to play. Figure out which 2 he wants to keep, what he wants to get rid of. Believe Mirage Gate put down in hand. Though debating, there's a couple of good options here.
Oh no, yeah, it's the Drapion V and the Energy Recycler. That was the combo, so you got to hold on to that. And then, which piece is more valuable than a Mirage Gate at this point? And the answer is none, and I agree.
Definitely not. Just how quickly you can get the energies out and that acceleration is, I mean, one of the most important parts of these Lost Zone lists. I mean, that's kind of what it's built around, or else why would you care if you have 7 in the discard, right?
Yeah, I understand the importance of that switch. We have seen that if you get the Yell Horn going, the confusion can be awkward, but sure enough, needs to throw that away, as having that Drapion to close out if the Mewtwo ever happens is the one way that you really do just solidify victory, and if that doesn't happen, you're in a great spot too. It means your opponent's not going to be taking prize cards with this setup.
Yeah, though it really just doesn't look like Daniel will be able to either at any point in the road. It will just be the Shred from this Giratina to take yet another prize for Austin. And Daniel now has the Snorlax, a Gardevoir, and a Miltank left on the bench. We'll have to see if there's any way that he can get something going. You already stressed about how much work and effort he needs to be putting in to try and get this Mewtwo V Union going. And here it is, Peonia, to see what can be pulled from these prizes. And sure enough, you get 1 leg.
Yep, and no Peonia. And that is not what you want to see. Very unfortunate that he wasn't able to grab at least 2 pieces of that. Would have obviously have loved to just see both of the Mewtwo V Union pieces right there. But even the Peonia would have meant that at least next turn you have it lined up. Instead, now you have to ask your deck for a little more help, and it doesn't look like it wants to help out anymore.
No, especially too. I mean, there is a couple of ways to try and slow Austin down. There was the Yell Horn. I mean, I don't know if he's out of hammers at this point, considering there was 2 that had to get pitched so early on. But you need to do anything to slow Austin down, because only 3 prizes away from closing out this game, and in all things considered, still plenty of time on the clock to do so.
Yep, we see the Ultra Ball here. The Mewtwo piece is going to go away, and Pyukumuku is welcomed back into the hand. Maybe that could be a way to further the hand to find a card that could eventually get the Peonia going again.
There it is. Still my favorite ability name, I think, out there, Pitcher Pyukumuku.
It's very cool.
It's very good. Wasn't able to quite see what he grabbed off of that Pyukumuku, though, but doesn't seem too excited about it nonetheless.
It was a Flannery, which is virtually useless.
Yep, checks out about the lack of excitement about that card. Gonna go ahead and scoop up the Miltank at that point. Just another card out of your hand so you can get 1 off of that Gormanize.
Yeah, it's more so about the prize exchange at this point. Just wants to lose a Snorlax, maybe lose a Radiant Gardevoir, and then have a Mewtwo V Union. And that's all that's left. No other Pokemon can be played down, or else Austin is going to target them by way of boss's orders and close the game out here, or even work in a Sableye. And we can see this is such a big play from Austin. Just says, you know what, I have time. You haven't found any of this stuff right now. I'm going to go ahead and get the Drapion V down with an energy.
And considering how that could be a liability being targeted down, it's being placed down. You have the energy attachment onto it. Austin's in such a good spot with nothing really threatening the board that you can go ahead and Mirage Gate onto it as well.
Yeah, the Mewtwo V Union would have to accelerate its own energies, and that's going to be the end of the turn. And if you're not concerned about the Crushing Hammers situation, which, as you mentioned earlier, it's not looking that great for Daniel, just go ahead and throw all the energies down on this Pokemon, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, if one attacker's not working out, well, then you have a second. And if you have a switch that is available to get into the Drapion, then it doesn't matter if your active is going to be confused at this point. So really just setting up to make sure that there's nothing that can really disrupt from this point out. And that will be the Shred. Take away this Snorlax, and it's just going to be that lone Radiant Gardevoir in the active on Daniel's end. And Austin, so close to closing this out. There's, I don't, what can you do? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, this is brutal. Austin played this very smooth. Has all the energies down, and then used the Pokestop to thin down even further to try to get all of the resources lined up. Daniel's just looking at this hand going, guess I'm going to Ultra Ball for a Pyukumuku? Help me.
I mean, I definitely don't disagree that Austin's been playing really clean. Let's not take it away from that. This has been phenomenal gameplay. But also, the game does get a lot easier when half of your opponent's V-Union is prized and they cannot get it out of the prizes to save their life.
Yeah.
Even when they played the Peonia to try and go for it, that's your supporter for the turn, still unable to grab it. When your opponent can't really play the game, it just feels so much better, too.
You know, when you get on the stage, it doesn't matter how you win, as long as you win. And it looks like Daniel understands just that. It's not going to be happening this round for Daniel. We'll have an opportunity in round number 9. But let's give a huge congratulations to Austin Ellis, who closed out phenomenally with a deck that has been counted out here a little bit in this format. Giratina VMAX still incredibly strong, and showing that he has the reach to take down a big bad control deck in that Mewtwo V Union.
Daniel, you'll get them next time. You still have another opportunity, but no, for real, huge congratulations here to all.